Yeah, so this is Carol Chapman. Carol is with the library, Ventura County Library System, and she is the manager of the adult literacy program with the library. So she does work with all of our locations and works out of the administration office down in Ventura itself. She recently brought the adult literacy program up to Ojai, which I'm sure she can tell you a lot more about than I can. In fact, I will go ahead and let sort of finish out her introduction. She's been here and has been a great help to me as I've been settling in here, and I'm just really happy to have her as a colleague. Carol Chapman. I don't think.
Thanks, Ron.
The other microphone is better.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me okay? No. Thank you, Ron. You guys are really lucky to have Ron in this club. He is exceptional, and we are really thrilled and proud to have him on our staff. So I hope you're feeling the same way, and I suspect that you are. Okay, you see a blank slide. Last night, this opening slide that I put in had a big 25% in the middle there. 25%. Did you know that 25% of English-speaking adults in California are reading below the 5th grade level? Is that too loud? No? Okay. I just don't want to blast people out. Anyway, 25%. That's a big number. Okay? That's the number of people reading below the 5th grade level, and actually, when you look at that, that's a range of people not reading at all, and people up at the 4th, 5th grade level that can fill out basic applications, read an article and get the basic points from it, fill out some simple forms, things like that. Okay. Oh, try that one. And the READ program, the adult literacy program here, is a department of the library. We've got sites all through the county. We provide free one-to-one reading instruction. All of our tutors are volunteers. We train them. They're pretty amazing, incredible people. And since you all volunteer, I know you understand that. They're, most of them giving 2 to 3 hours every week to help someone with reading. And the amazing thing is, it's free. Most of our sites are at libraries and at correctional facilities. So both the Youth Authority and the Ojai, not the Ojai Library, the Todd Road Jail. And our newest site, as Ron said, is the Ojai Library. And we're really excited about that and waiting for it to grow this year. So we'd like your help with that. Each of our sites, one of the things that makes us different, unique among all the other literacy programs in the state, is that each of our sites is staffed by a credentialed teacher. So they're there to assess the learners when they come in so that we have a starting point, and they work with the tutors. Most of our tutors are not teachers. They're just everybody else. And so they're there to assist them and monitor progress. And the one on the, okay, I was going to point out Claudia, who is the site supervisor here. She's the one that was, if I can go back, no, I can't get it to go back. Okay, she's the Ojai site supervisor. And I hope you get to meet her. She's a really nice person. So I said before, 25%, 1 out of every 4 English-speaking adults. Okay, so we're only counting people that speak English here. And for incarcerated adults, that's 70%. Okay, the estimate for incarcerated adults is 70% of them are reading below the 4th, 5th grade level. My idea is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Okay? But everybody naturally asks why and how is that possible? How can that happen? Several ways. Actually, as many ways as there are people, but I'll give you a couple of just quick stories. We had one woman come in, I would say she was in her late 40s or early 50s, that had never been to kindergarten, and in 1st and 2nd grade, she'd been in 9 different schools and been sick numerous times along the way. So she was never in any school long enough for anyone to either notice she had a problem or provide any real assistance. So being bright, she was able to learn to memorize words, but she never learned any phonics, so she was stuck at about the 3rd grade level because she couldn't decode. And here's the real problem, is literacy and lack of literacy is really expensive for all of us. Number one, so many of them are functioning kind of at the bottom of the economy. It's really hard to get a job if you can't read. And therefore, their wages are less. They're not eligible for promotions lots of times. And so they're actually feeding less into the economy. On the flip side of that is, as employers and other coworkers, oftentimes there are either mistakes made or just lack of productivity. We had one gentleman who was a maintenance worker at a local, not a local school to here, but at a school district, who all the notes that were given to him, you know, you put a note in his box, go do this. He would try and get the information out of the school secretary by just saying, you know, how important is this? Do I need to do it now? And she would give him some clues about what it was. Or he would wait and take it home and his wife would read it to him. So lots of loss of productivity, and that, again, is affecting the bottom line. So, but the major cause is learning disabilities. Undiagnosed or untreated learning disabilities. And what a learning disability is a difference between what you're capable of doing intellectually and what you can do actually. So a person with a learning disability, legally, they have to be normal or above normal intelligence. Excuse me. So right off the top, you know they're very bright. So there's something wrong neurologically that prevents them from learning in a regular, normal classroom environment. They're bright. They would learn there if they could, but they just can't. So there's some barrier, and probably the easiest example to explain is somebody with slow processing. So take 3 people and say they all have an intelligence of 140, okay? Pretty high IQ. One of them processes information at about 3 seconds, okay? Probably make a good litigation lawyer. They're the kind of people that finish your sentence before you've got the thought yourself. You know, they're just really fast that way. Let's say the next person processes information in 8 seconds. Probably most of us in that category. We just kind of go along and figure it out. But let's say the third person, equally intelligent, it takes them 24 seconds to process the sentence I'm speaking right now. Think about what happens to that person in a normal classroom. The sentence I'm saying right now, it's going to take them 24 seconds to figure it out. By the time they figure it out and check back in with me, I'm saying sentence 7, So now they have to figure out how to put what they got from sentence 1 together with sentence 7. By the time they figure that out, I'm on sentence 32. How do you keep pace in a regular classroom? Okay, so that's what I mean by a learning barrier in a regular classroom. So what they need is a different environment. Okay, so some of them need us. We're not a classroom environment. It's one-to-one. It's one-to-one with a friendly, compassionate person. Okay, so they need time to be able to go through it at a speed that works for them. They don't need to cover everything in a semester. They need the time to work it through. So, and they also need different techniques. And this is one of the ones we use. Probably looks like a Scrabble game. And that's what it is. It's little Scrabble pieces that are color-coded. And this system, called the Barton system, is designed specifically for people with dyslexia and other learning disabilities. So it goes through every sound, every letter, every sound, and every rule of the English language. So they start out at a pre-kindergarten level in the first book, and if they carry it all through all 10 books, they finish at the 10th grade reading level. It's a pretty amazing system. A lot to learn from it. So, let me tell you, though, about a couple of our other students. One of them was a firefighter, still is a firefighter. He came to our program because he had reached the point, he'd been in the force for quite a while, and he'd reached the point where he knew it was time for him to kind of get off the line and more of a desk job, but he couldn't apply for any of the promotions because although he was very eligible, he couldn't pass the test. And he knew he couldn't do the paperwork that would be required to write reports. So he hadn't even tried. He was too busy hiding the fact that he couldn't read. But then he was sitting and reading to his toddler, and his 4th grade daughter was standing, kind of reading over his shoulder, standing behind the chair, and he could sense that she was getting really agitated and irritated. And he figured out she was reading faster than he was, and it was really bugging her. And he made the decision right then, he did not want to lose her respect. So his wife started to look for programs where he could learn to read. And he was reading, I would say 2nd grade level, maybe high 2nd grade level. They went to a commercial tutoring program, and he got assessed, officially assessed, a really good assessment, and was told it would cost $8,000 for his remediation. And yeah, it's a lot of money. And they just couldn't afford that. So they kept looking, fortunately, and they found us. And we said, we're free. And that made the difference. But we were also really fortunate, and sometimes the powers that be, it's just out of our hands. We were really fortunate to have 2 amazing tutors at that time that worked with him. One of them was a gentleman that trained emergency personnel at diving and things like that, water rescue, so he knew what firemen needed to know. So he knew he'd be able to prepare this guy to pass the tests. The other person had a son that had severe learning disabilities, and she had learned this really specialized program, and she could teach him that. So between the 2 tutors, he did get his promotion, he did learn to read, and it's a happy family now. And when he wrote me a letter and told me that he got his promotion, he said that that day he had been able to help his daughter with homework instead of saying, wait till your mom gets home. So he's still had his daughter's respect. So, anyway, that's just one story. I could stand here all day and tell you stories until you were all in tears, but I won't. But different techniques and time and fun, making it fun. But do you love to read? I mean, I hear this all the time from my tutors. I love to read. And my question is, when you say I love to read, what do you mean? Are you thinking about a mystery, a romance novel, something that's a story, or a personal letter from a loved one? Are those the things you love to read? Or is it the email? Anybody love going to their email? Or is it just work? What about reading the ingredients on a soup can, or a recipe, or a medicine bottle? When you think about loving to read, are those the things you think about? I doubt it, because you probably don't even think that you're reading, right? When you say, I've got time to read, I'm going to go read, do you go to your email? Most of the time, those are work things that we do all day long. We just read all day long, and we don't think about it as being reading until we get to sit down with a book. However, that's not the case for our learners. Nobody comes into my program and says, I just want to learn to read a really good story. That's not on the radar. They come because they have problems every day that they can't solve, because they can't read the medicine bottle. The woman who came in with a child recently diagnosed with allergies that needed to be able to read the labels. The woman whose doctor had told her that if she gave her husband the wrong medicine or the medicine in the wrong way, she was going to kill him. Okay, they come in for real reasons. There's one gentleman that came in wanting to learn to write numbers, and he was in his late 70s. He'd been in our program before, so he'd learned to read. In fact, he got to the point where he was able to read the Reader's Digest, which was a big thing for him, but he's a native English speaker. One of the things I'm going to say that in a minute. Okay, he's a native English speaker, has really good language skills, so he could bring his knowledge to the text and understand it, even though sometimes his reading wasn't that good. But then he went to take the driver's test, and he was confident that now that he could read, he could pass the driver's test without having it read to him. But he couldn't read the word pedestrian, even though he knew the answer. So he failed the test, okay, a couple of times. But the time he came in was after that, and he needed to learn to write the numbers, and he was frantic with anxiety about to there. I mean, to the point where he couldn't learn, because he needed to learn to write numbers. And the reason he needed to learn to write numbers is that his wife, he owned a business, a very successful business, and for all these years, his wife had been paying the bills for both the business and their household. And now her Parkinson's was to the point where she could no longer do that. So he needed to be able to pay the bills. So they come to us, and that's what this is. This is our roles and goals sheet. These are the reasons why people come to literacy programs, because they need basic skills to do the things that we don't even think about. We also have, what I didn't say a minute ago, was 65%. For years, we've been a program for 33, 34 years. And we've always had between 60 and 65% of our learners born and educated in the United States, okay? But now we're working with a lot more immigrants. And Ojai is our one site right now. It's our smallest site, our newest site, and it's the only one with 100% immigrants. We have 4 learners, one from Cambodia, one from Japan, one from Africa, and one from Mexico. You have a very diverse little community here, okay? Did you know? Career Online High School is another program that we have, but I don't think I have time to explain that, but it's just an opportunity. Ooh. I've got a heavy thumb. I'm going through them too fast. It's an opportunity for adults to get their high school diploma, those that were on track to graduate, and then life happened. Somebody got pregnant, somebody died, and they had to go to work to support the family. They had to drop out of high school. So now it's an opportunity for adults that were on track to graduate to get their high school diploma. Our oldest student right now is 63. The next slide that I buzzed through really quickly said, we all know someone who struggles with reading. And at breakfast, we were talking about that people know people. But we all know someone who struggles with reading. We don't know it because they're hiding. They hide really well. They have all of these little things that they manage to do that they get information from us and we don't realize they're doing it. There was one gentleman that, he was actually a teacher, that carried a book with him everywhere he went. He had a book in his hand. Are you ever going to suspect that someone that has a book in their hand every time you look at them can't read? He had everybody fooled, okay? People will say, I broke my glasses, I can't fill that out, I'll take the application home. Things like that. And they'll ask you questions, and you'll answer, and they'll find things out that they wouldn't be able to find out except by reading. So, I'll tell you one story about a woman who was hiding among everybody, and she actually worked at a national grocery chain for 20 years and was their produce manager, so pretty successful, but reading it between the first and second grade level. Her husband helped with homework, did the kids' homework with them. Her husband paid all the bills and did anything that involved reading, because he knew. And aside from that, they kept it pretty hidden. But she got to the point where she was upset that she was relying so much on her husband and felt that it was unfair to him. So she found out about our program and came to learn to read. She was in the program for about 2 years and got to the point where she was reading fairly well, probably at about the 4th grade level. And her husband was so thrilled with her progress, he got her a little silver, like a cross pen or something, of just a very special little gift that she could do her writing with. And then he was killed suddenly in a traffic accident. And fortunately, she'd been in the program and had the skills to be able to take over the bill paying and things like that. And her daughters were basically out of that grade school age, so they were a little bit more independent. But where would she have been without those skills for those next couple of very difficult years? So I tell you this story, but the point I wanted to make is she was hiding among us. Nobody at the store knew she couldn't read. And when I did my training here in Ojai, trained the first bunch of tutors last spring, I had an article that she'd been interviewed by the newspaper, and there's an article that I had put on the back table with some books, and during the break, one of the tutors was reading the article, and all of a sudden she screamed. She's like, "Oh my God, I know this woman!" Everybody turns around and looks. I know this woman. I've known this woman for years and years. We go to the same meetings every week, and I talk to her all the time, and I never knew. I never had any idea. So my point there is there are people all around us that don't know how to read or are struggling with reading. Most people come to our program at about the 4th grade level. They learned the basics in elementary school, but they never got the phonics. And if you don't know the phonics, the sounds of the letters, how do you spell? How do you sound out the multiple syllable words? So they get stuck there. So anyway, the next slide was going to be, what can I do to help? So, 3 things. The first thing is, tell people. Spread the word for us. Right now, we only have 4 learners in our program here in Ojai. We've got over a dozen trained tutors ready to go and anxious to go and really capable. So help us find some more learners. Tell people, you're pebbles in the pond. The ripples go out from you because everybody you talk to will then be another person that knows, because we've hung up posters and put out literature all around town, but people that don't read don't pay attention to the print. They need to find out about it from a person. So I've left this literature on the back table. You can pick some up, post it somewhere. And this is tips, kind of, how can you tell a person struggles with reading? And then finally, you can always become a tutor. We'd welcome having you. But the last thing is the trivia challenge. Do you want to talk about the trivia challenge? Rotary South, every year for, I believe it's 29 years now, has done a trivia challenge for our program, and Dennis is going to talk about that.
We're so proud to have Carol in our club because of the great work she does with the adult literacy program. She's also a great librarian. But every year we put on a trivia challenge. It's teams of 3 persons competing for points. It's a very fun evening, and we have different divisions. There's a Rotary division, so that would be three members of your Rotary club. But there's also at-large divisions and business, I think, a couple of other categories. But the idea
Service
is
clubs.
a lot of fun. You go the way ahead. You practice every week. I didn't realize that you had a trivia challenge every single week. So I'm sure you put together a great team. It's November the 15th. On Wednesday evening. You can come as a guest and watch your fellow Rotarians compete. It's just a good time. And it usually goes from 6 to 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And it is one way that we help support this good program. The fee is $375 per team, but if you pay before November 1st, it's $300. So there's a good break. So we would love to have 1, 2, or 3 teams, perhaps from your club, participate in the event, and the information and the application is on the table there. So I encourage you to help us out. Thank you.
And there's a new category this year for service clubs. So service clubs, businesses, community, and youth. But service clubs, if there's 3 people on the team, then they'll compete against other service clubs, Rotary and maybe Kiwanis and things like that. So, questions?
Sure. I know someone who has trouble reading because he always is moving his lips. And I don't get too embarrassed about this because I've read that Abraham Lincoln did this too. You don't get off into find more problems like that.
As long as it's, a lot of people do that. In fact, probably most of us do if we're reading something that's difficult. You know, something that you're really focused on, it just kind of keeps you focused. And it might slow down your speed, but as long as you're comprehending, it's not a big deal.
going through museums on vacation just now. My wife accelerates ahead of me through the museum reading all the
That happens to me too.
These employers test their employees.
I don't think so. I'm not aware of any that do. Is anybody aware of any? Well, I know McDonald's was putting people through, was providing career online high school for people. So,
I know that a lot of employers will have a test, and so if you can't read at all, you're I don't know that they've specifically tested for
Right.
the library for our technicians, for instance, there is a written exam. So
It might be further around for giving sample testing.
and the colleges have placement tests, like community colleges have placement tests that place them in the right English classes before they begin. Yes?
You said 25% of the people that speak English in California are having trouble. Are you talking about English as a first language?
Or fluent English that they're using every day, that have transferred. Yes.
Yes, in 1945, I received notice that I had to get a physical by from the military service to be drafted. And so I went down to Los Angeles, the location they mentioned, and there was about 1,500 of us getting physical. And the guy in front of me turned to me with his papers, and in great big purple letters it said illiterate. And he said to me, "What does this mean?" And I was so embarrassed myself that I just said, "I don't know, I can't read." And he said,
That means your mother and your father weren't married.
poor guy must have gone through his lifetime
Yeah.
being unable to be. It's gotta be terrible.
I know there's a lot of employers now that make an applicant fill out the application in front of somebody.
Right, or online. And I know Penny's, several years ago, they were having problems hiring just because their prime employee at that time was the woman that was re-entering the workforce after having kids. And the women would come in and say, "I want an application," and they'd say, "It's right there on the computer," and the women would turn around and walk out. So they weren't even applying because they didn't have, computer literacy is another whole area of literacy now.
And I know it was always one of my favorite times when my daughter was growing up was to go sit in the classroom and first and second grade reading to them, and then you get that second and third grade, and they were so excited to get to read to me. So it was such a special time. Anyway, Carol, thank you so much, and what a great program. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, yeah.